What's going on, you guys? SlimYGO with a new video today, and yes, we are going to do our June 2020 ban list prediction. If you guys are new here, consider subscribing, hit that notification bell. You guys will be notified whenever I upload. You'll also be notified when I stream over on Twitch. Link is in the description. As you guys already know, our format, even though it's online, has still presented a lot of problems in the meta. We've seen the rise of the two best decks being Eldritch in some form and the rock deck that I can't pronounce. Both of those decks are insane, and they've definitely warranted some of these hits that will be on this ban list. Again, this is a prediction. I decided to do a new format for you guys. Hopefully you guys do enjoy it. Thanks to the tier maker website, I was able to make this nice little image for you, and I'll go through my choices and explain a lot of them. Some of them are pretty straightforward. Some of them are kind of just wish list stuff, and some of them are your guys' suggestions. So hopefully together we've come up with what I think is a pretty close to what a good list would be. As you see, I have everything laid out as well as a possibilities thing, and of course I will talk about that as well, but we will get into it. So like I said, the format has already shown that the two best decks being the Adamana Cypater rock deck and Eldritch, something needs to be done for that. So for the ban cards, the first one I have is Block Dragon. So Block Dragon should not come as a surprise. The card is basically a dragon ruler. It's basically a free summon, and it lets you search 3 whenever it goes to the graveyard. That's absolutely ridiculous. The rock deck literally just abuses this card, and because of that, I think the card does need to get banned. People would say limit it to 1. People still played it at 1. You can still play Foolish Burial, and it's like you're playing 2 copies. You can also play, if you play any other cards that would send it to the graveyard or get it to your hand. The card is absolutely insane, and I think that the card does need to get banned in order to change the direction that the deck will play in. I think by doing that, it will not kill the rock deck. It will just, again, have to change the direction that the deck is played in, and it will not play to the crazy extent that it's played now. So I think it's definitely a warranted hit, and it's something I think we can all agree on. Next, of course, Jet Synchron. This card is nuts. This card is like, this card should not be as good as it is, but because of cards like Needle Fiber and stuff like that, you unfortunately do have to talk about this card. Now, one thing I'm going to say before I continue is that I do not have any cards from Dual Overload getting hit. The reason being is that set is new and it's selling a lot, and I think that they're going to give us one more format of Needle Fiber. They're going to give us another format of multiple Verde Anacondas and stuff like that, and I feel like even if you limited both those cards, it would do nothing. Verde at 1, Needle Fiber at 1, most decks would only play 1 copy, so I don't actually see either of those cards getting banned just yet. I think they are problematic cards, but I think that they're not going to get hit on this list, so that's just something I wanted to preface. And also, with Jet Synchron, this card is just insane. Being able to come back from the graveyard, being able to, you know, just do your full combo is ridiculous. People have said that the Despot, Tuner, all those different tuners, O-Lion, all those cards should get hit, but I think most people and most of the masses have agreed that Jet Synchron is the card that needs to get hit, so we decided to ban it. That way that will at least slow down some of the Needle Fiber plays. And then this one, the third card, is Mystic Mind. This is just a personal one along with a lot of other players. Now I know all the boards that these decks put out are ridiculous. They spend 20 minutes building a board. Sometimes you just can't crack it. Sometimes you draw Mystic Mind, you bait in a gate or 2, drop Mystic Mind, the game's over, because guess what, your opponent didn't have an out to it. So while people will argue that, I still feel it's one of the most degenerate cards ever made. I don't think it's a card that should have ever been made in this game. So hopefully this card finally does go. I don't personally think it will, but I had to add it up here as the third forbidden card, because if there's another card that I do want to see banned, it is Mystic Mind, because being able to win off a degenerate card like this is ridiculous. So that's what I have for banned cards. On to the limited. You guys already know I have to have one of my favorite cards in the game ever come back. Colossus should not have been banned. I don't care what anyone says. The card at 1 would have been fine. I would have been perfectly fine with 1 copy. Bring this card to 1 and you will see more Thunder Dragon players coming back. We've already tried to bring the deck back to life, playing Titan Turbo, playing the Union Carrier, playing the Destruction Sword to lock the opponent out of the extra deck. Give us 1 Colossus. That's all I'm asking for. Let us play the deck, because I'll tell you right now, you put Colossus back at 1, I'm not going to play any other deck in the format, because I've missed playing this deck so much. The Colossus could actually be like decent in this format, being able to slow down some of these decks that search so much. So I think that it's important to have Colossus back at 1. I think it's fine. So I know that's like a personal wish list card, probably the biggest wish list card on this list, but you know what, I think it's time that the card comes back. I don't think it deserved to be banned at all. Putting it at 1 would have definitely kept the deck in check and still allowed more people to play Thunder, because if you notice, barely anyone's playing Thunder. You know why? Because we don't have Colossus, and no matter what you say, without Colossus the deck is not the same. So hopefully they do listen and maybe bring this card just to 1. I'm not asking for 3, I'm not even asking for 2, I'm just asking for 1. Next, I've got the only hit to Eldritch, and I had to include a hit to Eldritch because even though the cards are new, you can't hit Golden Lord. You're not going to really hit any of the other cards, and most people have said that the card to hit is the Scarlet Sanguines. It's the only trap that does summon Golden Boy from the deck or graveyard. This card is pretty crazy. I think that if they limit it to one, it'll slow the deck down a little bit. The way that this deck plays off its traps, off its spells, they still have plenty of ways to get to Golden Boy. I just needed a hit for this deck, and this would seem the most probable. Hitting Golden Lord to 2 will do nothing. Most decks play 2, so I think that this is the card to go after. I don't think hitting the Golden Lord will do anything unless you put it to 1, and I don't think it's ban worthy at all. So I think by doing this at least will keep the deck in check and definitely not take away its playability. So that was the only hit to Eldritch I have. Next, Pantheism of the Monarchs, which actually should have been down here in semi-limited, but anyways, we'll go to Blaster. So Blaster, I have at 1. So everyone talks about every list, will the Dragon Ruler will come back? Will the Dragon Ruler come back? Tempest was the first to come back, and honestly, Tempest didn't do anything outside of the Dragon Link deck, and it wasn't even like the best card. I think that if you bring Blaster back again, it still will not impact the format that much. If you look at the last remaining Dragon Rulers, Blaster, Tidal, and Redox, Blaster is the least impactful. It basically can pop a card, and it is the biggest, it is the strongest, but I don't think it'll be a huge impact. I don't think it'll really like do too much. It might be played in Solomon Grade, it might be played in Infernoid, but outside of that, I don't think the card is really going to be absurd if it were to come back to 1. So I wanted to bring back 1 Dragon Ruler, and if you look at Tidal, it's too strong in the Mermail deck. And if you look at Redox, it's a Monster Reborn, and it's an Earth. Could you imagine in the Rock deck how ridiculous that would be? So I think out of all the Dragon Rulers, this would be the card to bring back to 1. Next, I got Denglong. This is something that gets mentioned every single list. Put it to 1. The card's not going to like destroy the format. I don't think Yang Zings are going to do too much. I don't even think like there would be anything too crazy with Denglong. We've asked for this from multiple lists, and I mean, it just doesn't happen. Maybe there's a reason, but I think overall, like, you could put Denglong to 1, and I think it would be perfectly fine. And then this is probably the most controversial card on the list, and it's Max C. I know. I don't think this is going to happen, but I had to put it in there. We've needed this card for so many formats, and it's taken so long, and we still don't have it. I think it would be nice to see it back at 1, because at least we'd be able to do something with it, because Max C would just at least slow down the format. But the problem is with it at 1, it becomes that unsearchable one-of. I think you can search it with some other cards, but it becomes that sacky one-of, but it can also turn the tide of a game very quickly and hinder your opponent's plays. So I personally would like to see it back at 1. Personally, I'd love to see it back at 3 like OCG has, but I know we're not going to get it that way. But if we could see it at 1, that would be really strong. So that's another personal wish list one. Now on to the semi-limited. Pantheism should be over there. We just forgot to move it down. But Pantheism at 2. Give Monarchs a chance. They're not going to do anything. The deck's good, but the deck is just like so low tier. It's so underrepresented. Like, I don't think the deck will really do anything. But give them the draw card, and then maybe more Monarch players will play the deck. I really like the deck. I played it back in the format where it was one of the best decks. And I think if you put this card at 2, I don't think it's going to break the deck. I think it'll just give the deck like a little more leg to stand on than before. So that's my thoughts on Pantheism. Next, I've got Necros of Unicore. This is for all the Necros players. This is for all the players that request this card every single list. I think you need to bring this card to 2. The card's not broken. Sure, when Dragma comes out, Necros Dragma might become a really good deck, but until then, I don't think it's going to be like super impactful. I think having Necros of Unicore at 2 is fine. It does slow down extra deck base decks. I think that's really strong, and I think it's something that all these other rogue decks need, so I'm fine with it at 2. And then these last 2, I've seen people talk about this, ABC Dragon Buster as well as Totally Awesome. So the thing is that these cards were just completely limited to 1 because of Master Rule 5. However, I don't think that was necessary. I think they could have been left at 2, and then the decks could have actually been playable. I think the fact that they're both limited sucks because you can't even play the decks in the capacity that you could have before. Now, people are saying Toad more than ABC Dragon Buster would be more broken, but I think that you can't really say Paleozoic can keep up that well with the top decks of the list of the format in the Rock deck and the Eldritch decks. I think that if you put both of these cards to 2, it'll at least let people play the decks and at least see what they can do in Master Rule 5, but I don't think they'll be broken. I don't think they'll be unbeatable. I think that they were victims of a list before Master Rule 5 even happened, so I think that we need to see them actually do something in the format before we can warrant hitting these cards at all. So I didn't bring them to 3. I thought that it'd be better bring them to 2, and then it can actually be a difference. Like, this is the one time I'll say the semi-limited section will actually have a decent impact, because it'll actually change things to where you can actually play other decks where you couldn't play them before. So those are my thoughts on Toad and ABC Dragon Buster. I think those will be the best cards to bring to 2. And then lastly, for the unlimited, I have Red Eyes Darkness Metal. Now this is with the errata. With the errata, the card is not as strong as it used to be. It'll pretty much put an end to Dragon Link's Wombo combos, so I think it's fine to just bring that card to 3. I'm pretty sure with the errata that's what will end up happening. So that's my thoughts on that. And then I have Dynamite. Shout out to James for all the True Draco cards. I mean, True Draco is doing absolutely nothing. They've lost so many cards, diagrams at 1. You could give them this card back and I guess it would be fine. They'd have the heat and they'd have this, and at least they'd have more monsters. I really don't see True Draco doing anything over the top, even if this card comes back to 3. So I thought of all the cards I could bring back to 3, this would probably be the card. I couldn't really think of too much more. I didn't want to put a ton of cards on here, because when it comes to these predictions, you don't want to make them super long, because the more cards you put, the more likely you are to be wrong. So I think it's better to just leave it like this. And then this last section I made down here is called Possibilities. And yes, I have Alistair, and yes, I have Magical Meltdown. The reason why these are in their own section of this prediction is that I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what the correct hit would be. People have said put Meltdown to 1. People have said put Alistair to 1. You put Meltdown to 1, it won't destroy the Invoked Engine. You put Alistair to 1, it'll destroy the Invoked Engine. But I've heard people talk about 2 copies of Meltdown, 2 copies of Alistair. We don't really know where they're going to go with this. But unfortunately, as much as I love the Invoked Engine, I feel that it is so splashable in all these other decks that I think that now is the time to finally hit it. I don't know what they'll do. Maybe they'll mimic what OCG did. But I think until then, we just have to kind of have it on here as an option. I think for sure it's going to get hit in some shape or form. So I think it's more important to just be prepared for that. Like I said, I don't know if it'll be the field spell. I don't know if it'll be Alistair. There's no reason to hit Makaba. None of that matters. What matters is the engine cards that get you there. Hitting Invocation will be pointless too. So I think out of the cards, these would be the best, because this is the consistency cards. This is the cards that let you see Alistair. So I think that would be probably most likely what's going to happen. But that is my prediction, you guys. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you guys are looking to pick up any of the cards that will be impacted by this ban list, use my TCG player link down in the description below. It costs you nothing in return, and it goes back to the channel, and I really do appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts on my prediction. Do you think that it's pretty accurate for what we're going to get sometime soon? They said no sooner than June 1st, I believe, so we'll see if come next month we get a new ban list. I'm not sure if we will, but I think if we do, this would be a good blueprint to go off of. But let me know your thoughts on any cards I missed, any card you would add or take off from here, and hopefully we'll be seeing a ban list soon. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.